Hey everybody, welcome back to the Steel and Velvet Podcast. I am Nash.
And I am Macey.
Macey Marks, she's here. We are so happy to be with you guys, back with another episode. But something insane happened over the weekend. I shared my food with Macey. We actually shared food.
It's insane.
It is insane. We had a good time. We went to a place around here in Charleston that we hadn't been to yet. Just like a good outing for Macey. We were out for probably 8 hours, something like that. It was a long day.
Which the day before, I don't think we left the house, but Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. It was a good time. It was kind of an unexplored area for us, so it was fun seeing all that. Ate really good food. But I do not share food much like that.
No, you typically just stick to your own, but I'll pick off of his plate pretty much every meal.
Especially if there's fries. I'll probably get 40% of those fries.
No way.
I think so.
Anyway, yes, it was monumental. We split, and I got a burger, actually, which is very ironic, because usually Nash is the one that gets burgers, and he has this thing where literally if a restaurant has a burger on its menu, he has to get it. He says that. What do you say?
Here's my system. My system is I will go, if it's a restaurant that I'm going to for the first time, I'm going to get a burger, unless it's like an Italian place, Mexican place, whatever.
No, you've gotten a burger at a Mexican place before.
Well, there you go. I guess I've done that too. Yeah. And the reason being, here's my thought process, is that if this restaurant can't make a good burger, or even decent, it doesn't have to be like blow me out of the water good. Like it doesn't have to be that good. But if it's a bad burger, I then rule that place
as a bad restaurant.
Because if you mess up a burger, I don't know how anything else at that restaurant.
It's pretty sound logic, and now I've adopted that mindset. Hence the burger that I got and we shared. But
which I will say, this is where a crack in my logic comes in. Is I didn't think the burger was that good. The
burger was worse,
but the buffalo chicken sandwich was fantastic.
Very good.
So maybe don't listen to anything I'm saying.
So next time we're not going to share, and we're both going to get buffalo chicken sandwiches. True. That's the ideal.
That was the takeaway for the weekend.
Yeah.
I felt pretty accomplished that I shared my food with her.
Yeah.
Because I definitely could have had that sandwich.
You ate more than half of the meal overall. Like, I think I gave you half of my sandwich because I was like really full off fries in my house.
How many times did I ask if you wanted it?
Oh, you did. You were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? But
case closed. And now you're using it as an argument against me.
I'm not. I'm literally not arguing against you. That's kind of what we're talking about today, is sacrificial love and what that means to a marriage, to a Christian, to everyone's life.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Life.
So, Nash, what is sacrificial love?
Well, sacrifice is, I think you think about it in the Bible, right? Like they're sacrificing animals. You don't hear people say...
You're saying like the Old Testament?
Yeah, but you don't hear just people go around throwing around sacrifice just in day-to-day talk unless you're probably in the church.
It tends to be a negative thought,
right?
If anything, yeah. Right,
as if you are using it, it's, I had to sacrifice this. Yeah. But I think in Christian culture or in the church, we take it as a good thing, even if we don't see it as that all the time, because it's taking a part of you, right? You're laying down a part of yourself, and the biggest example of that was Jesus, what he laid down for us. And so, there's going to be different things with you and your spouse or your family, friends, whoever it is. It doesn't have to be specifically your spouse. That's what we're talking about today. But is that there's going to be things that we're going to have to lay down, and it's not going to feel the best, but the reward on the other side of that is great, and the benefit to your relationships too is great.
For me, I feel like the biggest sacrifices that I've learned that have benefited our marriage is sacrificing viewpoint, or just the concept of winning an argument. I've had to sacrifice that, and I've had to sacrifice I'll cut this out. I've had to sacrifice just like wants and desires on my part. Like now that we share finances, like that's also a topic of I want a surfboard right now. I don't need to be spending that much, so that's a sacrifice on my wants and my desires because it's not a need, it's not a necessity. Nash would disagree. I think he wants me to get a surfboard more than I want a surfboard.
Every person on the planet should have a surfboard.
But just in that concept of these three things really have kind of rung true in our relationship. And like, to be quite honest, before we got on this podcast, we were arguing a little bit, and I definitely, I'm owning up right now in front of you, just like that I could have sacrificed my viewpoint a lot sooner, and then we wouldn't have been sitting in that argument so long. Right. Because sitting in those feelings and emotions is not beneficial. And like you guys, I don't know if girls are similar to me, where like you just want to like fight back or like retort and just make nasty comments, because our words and our tongues hold a lot of value. It could be great,
yeah,
or it could be really, what did they say, life-giving, or death-giving, death-bearing? What is the term?
I mean, what you will say to me before I go to work could change how I feel during the whole day, right? Yeah. And so there's a great example of it. Just like that, your words carry. Yeah, your words for me.
Yeah. And that's a gift. That can be a really great gift. I could, like you're saying, my words before you leave, like, oh, I love you, I hope you have a great day, or however elaborate I want to get, that can be the only great thing that he hears in his day. So why not make that count? And that shouldn't stop when you go to work. That should be when you come home. And I didn't practice that well today, so I apologize. But I do think that when I am good at those, and when you're great at those, and we hold our tongues and we sacrifice what we may want to say because it would feel nice in the moment.
Right.
Okay, step back, or not step back, go forward after you say that and think about, okay, this is going to make us both feel really crappy. We're going to get in our emotions, and we're going to be short with one. There's no benefit. Yeah. So it might not feel great to not say it. It's such a battle. Like, that's what the enemy wants you to think, is that if you say it, it's going to feel really good. But then think about just like a devil on your shoulder, an angel on your shoulder. The devil's going to tell you, say it, say it, say it. It's going to make you feel good. Ooh, it's going to sting. Like, it's really going to sting. Then the angels will be like...
Or he'll say they need to hear this.
Yes. The devil will say they, like...
Yeah.
They really...
That's not always the case.
Yeah. And then the angel will... God, not the angel, but will kind of set you straight and just be like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do it. It's such a battle. And those are constantly conflicting. And I think that in times of arguments or conversations that might be tough, the devil rings louder, and it's just a lot quicker. And so that's why I urge you guys, and I urge myself and Nash to practice the patience in that, and what that sacrifice looks like in a day-to-day basis, but also just like on a conversational basis. Every single conversation that you have holds value, and you need to practice slowing down and processing what you're saying, because it really does hold so much. And you need to listen to the little angel on your shoulder, or whatever God is trying to tell you, because before we got on this podcast, if I would have just taken a step back and not said anything, prayed and centered myself, then we would have saved ourselves a few minutes of silence and uncomfortable times. You know what I'm saying? So that's really heavy on my heart right now, because we're going through that. Are you going to God with those situations? Are you communicating with Him about those situations? Sometimes it's best to do that before you communicate with your spouse about that. Yeah.
Before you open your mouth and say what you think is best, why not do a prayer, just to yourself? Which is insane. What, Holy Spirit is telling you to say.
It's insane. Sorry to cut you off. It's like, we know, and when we practice that, when we know and practice, okay, I need to just separate myself and pray, go to God first. That always works out. It literally, I cannot tell you a time that it hasn't worked out. But so often we practice the opposite, and we're like so quick to just da-da-da-da-da-da back and forth. Whereas
that's exactly what we sound like when we argue, actually. How did she get that so well?
Cartoonish. No, I think that we know what's good for us, and I know you guys know what is good for you.
Yeah.
But the battle is, are you willing to sacrifice those hard things that you would like to say? Are you willing to sacrifice that for the benefit of your marriage?
Yeah. That's the question.
Because you've been given the gift of marriage. You've been given the gift of a spouse. And like I said earlier, you can be the only great thing that person, your spouse, can hear that day.
Right.
That's just a little snippet of a benefit of marriage. Like, you hold that value too now, being a spouse. So what does that look like? And are you willing to sacrifice that?
It's a responsibility. Yeah.
It is a responsibility.
Yeah. That's really good. The other thing that I was thinking about when it comes to sacrificial love is God gives opportunity for it.
Yeah.
Right? Think about Abraham and Isaac. This was even before Jesus gave us the picture of what sacrificial love looks like, or what it looks like to sacrifice something that is so precious to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're in arguments, or maybe it's something that's precious to us is our rest after work, even though our spouse wants to go out, or that we need to win that argument. That's precious to us, or our pride is precious to us. And so Abraham was given an opportunity to sacrifice something that was precious to him, and he didn't doubt it. And he was going to. Thankfully, God rewarded him for that faith and that obedience. And so if you look at what God's heart would say about the situation is that he's going to reward you if you carry out that sacrifice, if you're faithful to him in being sacrificial for your spouse, is that faithfulness will be rewarded because of how you hold your tongue, or if you're to go out, even though you're really tired, and just choosing to love your spouse through that and choosing to sacrifice for them.
I think that's great what you were saying about faithfulness. God will honor faithfulness. And I think that reigns true also in like what you're saying about sacrificing. Sacrificing is a discipline. And I think that, any aspect of obedience is a discipline. And I think that that's really hard in our age and maybe a little bit older and younger. Discipline. What did I say?
No.
So discipline, sorry. I would say discipline is just hard for our age, specifically because there is so many easier things to go and do, but practicing that faithfulness, because the faithfulness in the sacrificing and the faithfulness in the obedience to God is honored. He does promise that it is fulfilling, and we've seen it reign true in all these stories, like that story of Abraham and Isaac. And then Jesus, like, we've seen this. He promises this, and we need to trust that his promises are true. Yeah. And so it's uncomfortable, and it's not going to necessarily feel great instantly, but sacrificing that comment you were going to say, sacrificing that, I don't know, anything. What are you feeling? What are you dealing with? Like, that is what you need to give over to God. And I think that it's just really hard for or at least for me, I'll say it for me, that I have a hard time with discipline when it comes to that stuff. Yeah. But I know when I have practiced it in the past, and when I do practice it, that it's so much more fulfilling.
And it can get routine once you...
Yes.
There's a quote that you do, and it's going to sound weird, but it makes sense when you think about it. You do one thing a certain way, you're going to do the rest of the things that you do the same way. Yeah. And so if I'm choosing to be lazy in a certain area of my life, maybe that's going to pour over into my prayer time with God, or maybe that's going to pour over into how I'm sacrificing for Macey, right? Because like you said, it's a discipline. Yeah. And so if I do one thing kind of halfway, it's going to pour over into other aspects of my life. And so as long as I'm choosing to be disciplined in one way, it's going to, you are disciplined. And I think that carries over. And so I liked how you said that being sacrificial is a discipline, because nobody wants to do it.
It's not in our nature.
No.
It's not in our nature. But we have a model. We have Christ, who literally sacrificed his life. Yeah. He died for us, these people that he did not know yet. And some of us, not some of us, but people will never know him. Some people will never know him, but he still died for them. He gave them that choice. Yep. And so to think of the severity of that, of like, he's willing to sacrifice his life for these people that may never come to know him, and I can't sacrifice what I was going to say to you. Yeah. Like, that's kind of insane. Right. And I know Easter's coming up in a couple weeks, of just how important is that sacrifice? Because I would say we have a great model to model it after.
Yeah.
And just this is a great season to remind ourselves of what that reminder is and how we can apply that to our lives and to our relationships, because it's just the most important thing. Like, my marriage is the most important thing to me right now.
Yeah.
And to think that
other than your relationship with God.
Yes, Jesus and then marriage. It's just, we have this responsibility now, and to think that we don't give our all in it is just hard. And so that's why I think I'm so eager to just be disciplined in that area, because yeah.
That's good. Do you have some questions?
I did. I wanted to ask you, what are ways that you think that you could change, or that you could sacrifice for the benefit of our marriage right now in this season?
I think something that God is teaching me is to just sacrifice time. And that may not even be related to work. It could just be 10 minutes here and there, compared to wanting to flip on a YouTube video or start watching a show or whatever it is, or just literally sitting in silence. I love sitting in silence and not saying
That's
anything.
a favorite of mine.
Yeah, Macey loves that. And so I think God's teaching me to sacrifice time.
I think as you say that, quality time is definitely climbing up on my list.
Yep.
I think ministry life is starting to hit me. Nash has been in this position for about 6 months, and I think ministry is a very demanding job.
Yeah.
Ministry is a very time-demanding job, and it's amazing. It's amazing to go and spend.
It's not 9 to 5 for sure.
No, it's not 9 to 5, but it's rewarding when we do go to kids games or spend extra time at church. It is so rewarding, so I don't want to diminish that, but I definitely have desired more alone time, and also just like quality time, like you're saying. Like, we don't need to throw on a YouTube video or binge another season of The Amazing Race. So it's just,
sounds great.
It sounds amazing, but I would much rather talk to you, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. What about you?
Thought you'd never ask.
But I just did.
Yeah, you did. I think that I need to get better with sacrificing my emotions. I think I can be, and I pretty much am the emotional one in the bunch. There's 2 of us.
I want to make like a sarcastic, like, what?
Yeah,
but
no,
I'm afraid
it's
you get
true.
mad at me.
No, I think my emotions have been getting the better of me, and I think that if I could sacrifice the comments that come from an emotional time, that we would really spare ourselves a lot of tiffs and arguments.
Oh, yeah.
Hence, right before we got on, I could have easily just stopped it where it was at and not nip it in the butt. Nip it in the butt. It's hard for me to do that.
That's episode.
Nip it in the butt?
Nip it in the butt, no.
Do you want to?
No. No.
I just think, that's really hard for me. And I don't think that it's beneficial anyway to make a comment when I'm emotional. There has never been a time that's been beneficial.
Right.
And if I love you, I need to sacrifice that comment that I'm going to make.
Yeah, and that goes both ways.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Action steps.
Ask you guys. I want to ask you guys, what are things that you can change in your marriage? What are things that you can sacrifice that would benefit your marriage? Because if it's important to you, if your spouse is important to you, then you're going to be willing to sacrifice something. So what are things that you can change? And I bet you there's at least one, if not more, that you can change to benefit your marriage. And also, what does that, like, sit in those, once you list out those things, sit and think, like, does this unsettle me? Do I, like, what do I think about this?
Yeah.
Because if you're having a hard time sacrificing something, but you need to, then you need to go to God and ask Him for discernment on what that looks like, or how to accomplish this, how to pray for Him to give you the guidance on how to sacrifice that. Pray for Him to remind you. That's what I need to do.
Yeah.
Like, God, please remind me in those times because I can't do it on my own willpower, and neither can you, neither can Nash.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that we cannot do this and have this discipline and this obedience to God, because without him, then we don't have that. So we need to go to him first. But I urge you to ask yourselves and ask your spouse, or what are things that you can change or I can change, you know? I think that would be really beneficial to a marriage, to anybody's marriage. So,
and for all the single Pringles, the single Pringles,
yeesh.
which who wants it? Actually, that's gonna sound bad. I would say who wants a single Pringle, because they're so good. But people want single Pringles out there. I was just saying, for all of the single Pringles, as I was saying.
Goodness gracious. Okay, just get over with it.
That if it's not, with a spouse, what's just an area that you can sacrifice with God? Is it more time? Because I think God wants that, right? We're still in a relationship with him.
And that should be the first relationship that we focus on.
And again, we talked about it pouring over. If you're not doing that with God, how do you expect to value that when it comes to your spouse? Or, if you don't have that yet, how do you expect that to happen when you're there?
What are you bringing into what you can put out? We've talked about in the past the fruits of the Spirit. If you're not filling yourself up with these stories in the Bible that God gives us, or even just applications, if we're not filling our minds with that, then how can we expect good fruit or good attributes of ourselves to come out if we're not getting that in?
If you eat rotten fruit, you know what comes out on the other side?
No good. No bueno. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? Finish the sentence.
You just need Febreze.
Febreze?
Yeah. That's what comes out on the other side.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
I think that is it. What episode are we on at this point?
We're on 18. I really pray. I want to finish this off and just urge you guys to practice those 3 questions that we asked at the end. I think...
Which were?
The first one was, ask yourself what are changes that you could make to benefit your marriage. Second is, look at that list and analyze if any of those make you uncomfortable, or if they kind of set you off, because our nature is going to say, well, I don't actually need to change that. I don't actually need to do that. Ask yourself if it is something you need to change, and then bring it to God and ask him for discernment on how to combat that, how to go about those. And I would just say talk about it with your spouse as well, because you might have things or concerns that you want to bring up to me, or your spouse might have some things, or vice versa. I think that's important to bring your partner into that conversation, if not exclusively doing that with your partner. If you're trying to benefit your marriage, you guys are both going to have something to say about it. I just really urge you guys to practice that, because if we're not in constant communication and talking about our wants and desires for our relationships, then what are you doing? Yeah. Where is it going to go? You got to talk about it and talk to God about it. Then you can see the fruit come from it, the good things. Because marriage is a very beautiful thing. If we do it right, then... Oh, I read this quote, and it was in our Devo. Sorry, this is what I'm going to finish off with. It says, here, I have it on my journal. It says, all of heaven rejoices when a married couple follows in the footsteps of Jesus.
That's good.
Like, to think about...
That's your goal.
All of heaven rejoices when people are welcomed into the kingdom of heaven, but they also rejoice when a married couple chooses to follow him and model their lives after him, because we have such an impact in the choices that we make. Yeah. So that is what I'll leave you guys with. I hope you guys have a great week and that you don't follow in my footsteps and sit in emotions.
But also follow in her vulnerability and honesty. Yeah. Sure. There you go. Cool. Have a great week. Yes. See you guys next Wednesday. Bye. Peace.